Stay tuned until the end of this Throwdown episode where I'll break down this workout bonanza and tell you how to plan your attack.
Oh my God! Throwdown! On this week's Throwdown, we have Frankie Frank and Allie Allison demo the workout.
We've got a Thanksgiving sample platter for you.
Hope you're hungry.
That's what I was gonna say.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Max.
You know the deal. We release these workouts every Thursday right here on YouTube at 1 p.m. Happy Thanksgiving. Check out our online training programs. If you're a competitor in CrossFit, check out TTT Compete. For those of you that want to look good and feel good, check out TTT Fitness. Head to trainingthinktank.com for more info.
This week's Throwdown is, for time, 5 rounds of Cindy, 1 round of Diane, or just Diane, and followed by Isabel.
Get that straight.
Yep, I got it.
You're doing 21-15-9 of deadlifts and handstand push-ups.
It's on the board.
And if you want to get on the leaderboard for this workout, look in the description down below. There you will find movement standards and a warm-up. And don't forget, if you want to do our Winter is Coming Classic, then sign up on the website.
This week's demo athletes are a couple. Allison is a bubble level semifinal athlete. She finished around 140th in the world in the quarterfinals. Just missed out on RX at Wodapalooza qualifier.
Why did you point at me?
I don't know, you told me that. You're a girl too. Frank is, depending on the workout, more of an intermediate or RX level athlete. Because handstand push-ups were in this workout, he decided to scale to keep the turnover fast and maybe have a little bit more of a race with the significant other.
So grab your turkey, eat your stuffing, and watch this workout.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Go!
You're a great announcer. All right, let's start this off with 5 rounds of Cindy.
Yeah, there's a lot of benchmarks going on in this workout.
A little sampler platter.
Sample platter.
Normal Cindy is not hand release push-ups though.
No, you got to standardize it somehow.
Yeah.
Because you know people worm it up.
Kind of a little sloppy without that.
I like the hand release standard, although you have to make sure that your feet don't come off the ground, so just be aware of that.
So when you think of this type of workout, is this for like an elite athlete, a sprint style workout?
Yeah, I really think that most high-level males and females will just fly through Cindy, probably, I would guess, maybe 40 seconds a round, maybe a little bit slower than that, and then 2.5 to 3 minutes on Diane, and probably the same thing, to be honest, on the 30 snatches.
Okay, now for regular mortals, what are we thinking? What are we thinking on this type of workout? I feel like separator-wise, it's gonna kind of just be movement speed for the first couple rounds of Cindy because maybe the bottleneck could be push-ups, but I think it's only 50 total, which bottleneck maybe females a little bit more than males, I'd say.
Yeah, I think the thing that you have to think about is if you're not great at pressing, it is only 50 push-ups, but you're going right into handstand push-ups intentionally. So there will be some residual fatigue that happens. So you got to be smart with Cindy and not just fly through it where your shoulders are blown up or your arms are blown up.
Yeah, I think it's smart to break up the push-ups if you're worried about the handstand push-ups because you're going to lose a lot more time going into small sets on handstand push-ups versus push-ups.
All right, so hopefully both of these athletes, when they get back to the air squats, are next to each other still. It'll be interesting to see the discrepancy in movement speed. I think the biggest place for the Cindy portion of it that people could separate movement speed-wise is the air squats, because if you do fast air squats, you can definitely make up a decent amount of time over the course of 15 reps.
For sure. You can see Allison's already, her hand release push-ups are going a little bit, which, again, you got to think about that going into 45 handstand push-ups after this.
Yeah. But her squat speed is still really fast. So it seems like pull-ups unbroken, air squats unbroken and fast, break up the push-ups for most people because that's probably going to limit handstand push-ups. Do you think you could do the handstand push-ups unbroken in this format?
I don't think I would even if I could because of the snatches afterwards.
Yeah, that is going to be a huge separator, though, for high-level athletes. Those that are really good at pressing, they'll fly through the push-ups. They'll be able to do the handstand push-ups unbroken, and then they won't have that fatigue in their shoulders or triceps, or at least as much, so they can do the snatches a little bit faster.
Yeah, chin over bar pull-ups, too, for 5 reps. I feel like normal kipping, butterfly, like there's just not that much separation because it's just such a small number.
And it's
of
the
total
only
reps.
gymnastics pulling in the whole workout.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty simple. Although it's challenging if you are used to chest to bars and then you try to kind of like almost like lessen your pull and get your chin over, it's always hard for me to time up.
If you can organize your kip where your chin is just barely getting over the bar, if you're practicing workouts that do have high volumes of pull-ups, it makes a big difference. Some people get so good at chest to bars that their normal pull-ups, they're going way above, but Allison actually does a really good job right here. Her chin is just over the horizontal plane of the bar, whereas if you pull a little bit too high, it could almost be at your clavicle where you're doing a lot of extra pulling.
She's doing a great job with her transitions also. She has to break up the push-ups, like you said, but she jumps straight down into her first set of push-ups, takes a break, and then her transition into the air squats is pretty nifty.
What do you think about the laying down arms overhead rest strategy versus like getting up to the knees or something like that where your hands are in easier to rest position?
I mean, she's really only resting for a couple seconds, so I think it's fine. If you're taking like 10-second rests, then probably not the best position to rest in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that, like maybe have like a Moxie monitor or something on the arms and see what the difference is.
Yeah.
But I always feel more comfortable going to my knees if I have to break, taking a deep breath and then coming back down.
So she finished the Cindy portion in 3:46 or 3:56 and just walked right over to the bar and picked up. I mean, that's a super fast transition. I also feel like the structure of that Cindy portion, this should be the transition to this. At this point of the workout, you really shouldn't be redlined. If you are redlined, you started out too high because it's just body weight.
Or you didn't warm up well.
Yeah, something.
I mean, it is still breathy. If you're sprinting for 5 rounds of Cindy, even if you're really good at body weight movements, you're going to be breathing hard, but it should not pull you back from going directly to the deadlifts.
Yeah, you might be able to like slow your last couple air squats down too to just like kind of get composed for a fast transition.
So Allison is pretty strong as an athlete, and she's breaking up these deadlifts quite a bit, which I think is fine. I think deadlifts are a great movement to break up a lot because you're just letting gravity do the eccentric. She did say that her back started getting tight like right away. I don't know if that's just a her thing or something to do with Cindy that translated over.
I find the deadlift and kipping handstand push-up, that combination tightens my back up a lot. I think it's just from maybe that kip action of the hips right there, but it definitely does make a big difference on my back pairing those movements. I also think breaking up these deadlifts makes sense if you can't do the handstand push-ups in really big sets. If you can do the handstand push-ups unbroken, then maybe taking less breaks on the deadlifts and pushing the pace there makes a little bit more sense. But if you blow your back up, that Isabel at the end could take a lot of time. So I think a breakup strategy could potentially be smart even for an elite.
Yeah, I mean, most elite athletes in the open, what was that, 2019 with the last time that we did the Diane into the heavy deadlifts?
Yeah.
Most athletes did break that first portion up just so that they could go fast on the 315 or 205 bar.
I forget, too, Allison is an elite. I mean, she almost qualified for RX Wadapalooza. That's top 0.1% of the sport. But when we're saying elite in this context, we're talking about like top 10 games.
Travis?
Yeah, like a top 10 in the games type athlete in this format.
But even Travis, he wouldn't listen to me, but I would tell him to break up the deadlift so that he could go fast on the Isabel portion.
No, you know, in the 21-15-9 deadlift handstand push-up and then heavier deadlift handstand walk, I think that both him and Noah, by the end of it, ended up breaking up those deadlifts at 225, which is the same thing here as 155.
Right.
Also, Frank, too, notice he's doing a scaled version with dumbbell push press. That's a very similar type stimulus, except that your knees don't go into as much hip flexion because you're standing up, but could potentially be a good way for people to scale it if they just don't want to do the kipping handstand push-up or don't yet have the strength.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said, too, of instead of trying that all the time when you're doing training, maybe modify so you can get a better stimulus and then continue to work on the skill that you don't have.
Yeah, the modification, too, I mean, it could help with working around a skill. It could help with being able to stay consistent if you have something tweaky. Like for some people, as they're developing kipping handstand push-ups, it could be neck or shoulder, upper back. And if you do get some sort of a tweak, if you have to go 6 weeks of rehabbing it before you start doing any overhead stuff, it's hard to make that sustained progress. So sometimes figuring out a modification that's a little bit less loading, a little bit less stressful for you, allows you to keep your training rhythm going so you get better over the long term. So
and dumbbell shoulder to overhead are hard.
No, they are.
I feel like it almost makes it a harder workout for like heart rate to be doing deadlifts and like being on the feet the whole time.
Yeah, one of the things that I think we do well in our TTT Compete program is offer those modifications. So that's just something I wanted to mention is most people should be following a template that gives you options so that you can tweak around or move around the tweaks that you have or the skill limitations that you may have.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do that for yourself unless you have a one-on-one coach. You have to have some sort of an ability to understand that something like that's not the end of the world. If a movement comes up you can't do, like if, this post-Thanksgiving workout for you, if you're like, oh, I can't do handstand push-ups, what do I do? Having scaling options and just allowing yourself to cultivate those skills over time is just a way to keep getting better.
So Allison's finishing up her last set of deadlifts. She has 9 handstand push-ups left.
Yeah, so it's 356 to finish the Cindy rounds. It looks like she's going to be somewhere in the 840 range or 850 range, so almost 4 minutes and then almost 5 minutes to do the first 2 components of it, and then we'll get into the power snatches. A normal Isabel at like a max effort elite level is like somewhere maybe sub 130, either unbroken or 2 breaks for it. Yeah. But it's not going to look anything like that in this format. Nothing like that.
Yeah, this is one of the tests that if you add it into something else, then the times deteriorate quickly.
Yeah. Another point of time could also be the transition, because people, this isn't the fastest, most seamless transition right now, but she's also resting before she gets to that bar. This is a kind of a mistake I think people make, is like they'll go through a workout like this and be like, oh, my Diane time's 3 minutes, my Isabel time is 2 minutes. It's only going to take me 5 minutes once I pass those Cindy rounds. It's not the same when you're 5 minutes into a workout and you do a benchmark. So only use those as like little markers of like, okay, this is approximately how I could break it up.
I will say, once you get into Isabel, have a few plans in place based on how you're going to feel. And before the workout, obviously, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to be able to do big sets. We'll have one of those plans that maybe it's, I'm going to do sets of 5 for the first couple, 15, whatever. But then also have a plan, I'm going to do one single on the 8 seconds or 12 seconds or whatever it may be. But have those options for yourself so that you kind of stay diligent. You're close to the bar the entire time, but you're also holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, so she opened with a set of 3 touch and go and then went to singles. And let's just see, she just finished that rep at the 10 seconds. Next one at the 4 seconds. See what the next one, if it's on the 8, 9, 10.
Yeah, I mean, she's going based on feel, and that's how most athletes train and compete, and I think that that's okay, but in this setting, for me, I always tell my athletes, have a game plan, start practicing it, and see if you can push that time a little bit, and then it gives you a nice benchmark for if you do this again.
Yeah, I'd say as a marker for evaluating how well you operate by feel, looking at how you accomplish your reps over 30 reps in terms of time. If you're going on the 4 seconds and then it's on the 8 seconds and then it's on the 12 and then you finish on the 4 and it's kind of all sporadic, you know that that's not necessarily optimal pacing. Most people that optimally pace will have a pretty close, if they're doing singles, they'll be going on the 5 seconds and they look very rhythmic. Like if you watch Rich Froning barbell cycle over the years, there's such a rhythm and an understanding of how he's tackling the whole 30 reps. So it could be something that you start to learn, what is your tempo that you can try to maintain when you're under fatigue, instead of, okay, I'm gonna go fast, 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 red line, elbows on the knees, chill, fast, fast, elbows on the knees. I think that kind of sporadic rhythm is just really hard to be successful in an endurance style event like this.
Brandon touched on this, but I think it's helpful to be able, in the moment when you may have had your plan beforehand, it doesn't go according to plan, be able to make another plan quickly so you're not just emotionally reacting. So say you wanted to start with or hold 3s and that lasts for 12 reps, instead of like getting bummed and sitting with your elbows on your knees, think, all right, I'm gonna do singles with 2 breaths in between, or something where you can just keep yourself moving. That helps me a lot in workouts.
One thing I noticed in Frank, as you were just talking, it changed, but he had a miss in his snatch. The shoulders and just the stability overhead is going to probably be pretty jacked up by this point in the workout. It's a bunch of gymnastics into deadlift and gymnastics into something that requires overhead stability. So be prepared for that your shoulders will probably be a little bit more wobbly and loose feeling than maybe if you're doing a 1RM snatch.
Yeah, Allison is moving the snatch really well. Like she's very strong, so that might not be what it looks like for most people.
What were we at the 9-minute mark when she started this?
Yes.
About that?
I think she actually started at like 9:20, but the transition was like
it was the changing of the
8:50.
weights, which is going to take that. I mean, you have to be efficient at changing the weight, which may sound silly, but it's going to take everyone, 15, 20 seconds at least.
Yeah, so that took her like 3:30 to do the Isabel. That was an interesting way that she chipped it away. So it was like 3 singles for a bunch, then there was like a 2, another 3, some more singles, and then she ended with 5 touch and go. So I think if she was doing this in a qualifier setting and she had to redo this workout, she'd probably look at that and then figure out, okay, how do I want to do this barbell cycling at the end? But for a first time run through after all that work, I feel like it was still a pretty fast execution.
Yeah. Another option is to go singles the entire time like Frank's doing. I think for most people this makes sense, but I would suggest following a clock and maybe even do like a cluster style. So maybe it's 5 faster singles, then take a longer break, and then 4 faster singles, take a longer break, 3, and keep chipping away that way. That gets you to 15 if you went 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take another break, and then try to do that again.
Yeah. That's actually something I've stolen from you, is that I could do barbell cycling fast break, as opposed to trying only to think of it as 1 rep, same rest, 1 rep, same rest.
Right.
Sometimes I'll go 1, 1, 1, rest, 1, 1, 1, rest. And it's really helpful for me to kind of manage, my heart rate and fatigue.
I think the psychology there is just easier. For me, it mentally allows me to break up within a workout, these like little micro workouts, and say I got to beat myself to 3 and then beat myself to 6 and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you get some wins.
You can see that.
I felt the silence. I wanted to know what you were going to say.
Yeah, I mean, you could just see it, like Max already alluded to, his shoulders, but it also looks like when he's setting up, maybe a little back fatigue from the deadlifts, which totally makes sense, right? You did 45 deadlifts. And something else to note, I know it's only 75 air squats, but if your squatting positions are tight, if your hips are tight, that can blow up your back going into the deadlifts, which then it just like compounds into the snatches.
Yeah, sometimes too. I mean, you got to think he's 14 and a half minutes into like an energy system fatiguing type workout. So like maintaining your positions under fatigue is a skill that you see the best in the world do. What did I say?
No, the socks.
Turkey socks.
Oh,
Get your turkey on.
Yeah, it's a skill you see in elites and you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. But actually practicing that your movement stays tight and fluid and crisp when you're 15 minutes into being fatigued is really challenging. You almost can't even feel your body in those types of situations. Like you think, oh, I'm being tight, and then you go back and watch it and you're like, what the hell's going on there? That's not the position I was in.
You mentioned this a while ago, but Rich Froning, one of the videos that I loved was the open workout where it's the snatch ladder, and he did like 5s and then 3s and then singles, but how smooth the entire thing looked, even at the heaviest barbell, and that's kind of what you're talking about.
He lured people into thinking that was realistic, and then people did the workout and were like, what?
So these two, they're married, and I'm sure there's a ton of trust right here, but I was so nervous about how close they were to one another.
So don't do that.
Come on, Allison, get out of the way. I think this might be the last one.
The time cap is at
cap,
16 minutes.
Let's finish it.
Bam.
Great job, man.
Finishes.
All right, let's go to the whiteboard. All right, so we have 3 benchmark workouts split into one, but one of them is not a full benchmark. We have Cindy, which is actually a 20-minute AMRAP of the 5, 10, 15 sequence that the workout is. However, it is not hand release push-ups in Cindy, but for the sake of me giving you times, let's just assume that it was that straight workout. Then we have Diane, which is 21:59 of the deadlift handstand push-up, and Isabel, which is the 30 power snatch for time. When you're doing these in sequence, like we talked about in the actual demo, you're not going to be able to hit your target times as if this were just a benchmark. However, we can use that information to give us some sort of a guidepost and some sort of a target as we approach the workout. So for Cindy, elites, if they were fresh doing Cindy, would get 30 rounds or potentially even more in 20 minutes. A intermediate athlete, if they were fresh, is probably aiming towards like a 15 or 20 rounds in 20 minutes, which is about an on-the-minute pace. So I tried to give some sort of a context that an elite athlete going at full speed in this workout could be like sub 330. I put 320-ish, which is about 40-second rounds. And an intermediate athlete would probably just be a little bit slower. They might have to break the pull-ups, maybe break the hand release push-ups, and maintain a little bit of a slower heavier air squat cadence, which would be 1 minute rounds to finish. So as you're going through this first Cindy portion, that's probably a guidepost to figure out if you're a top level athlete, somewhere around that 330 bubble is where you should be finishing. If you're somebody that's on your up and coming development path, maybe aiming for that 5-minute target to finish. Then you move into Diane. Now, in a fresh setting, there are athletes now, both male and female, that can do that sub 2 minutes, which is flying. That's full speed deadlifts unbroken, full speed handstand push-ups unbroken, going back and forth with quick transitions. Maybe a more realistic target for an intermediate athlete is about a 5-minute pace. This is about how much time maybe lower level RX athletes would finish that 21:15:9 Diane portion in the workout. I forget which open workout it was, but that we reference that was deadlift, handstand, push-up, and then heavier deadlift, handstand, walk. So these can kind of give you another target of what somebody can do fresh. Now, this not gonna be exactly this when you go through the workout. It's probably gonna be closer to 3.5 minutes for an elite fresh, or maybe a sub 3. So there's a lot more rest time and a little bit of a slower movement cadence for elites, and probably a slower than 5-minute, let's say somewhere between 5 and 7 for an intermediate athlete, and that's going to be very dependent upon your ability to cycle the handstand push-ups. I think the deadlift in this is relatively reasonable in terms of the weight. Most athletes, unless you're very strength limited, will be able to cycle that. So the real separator in this Diane portion is handstand push-ups. My cues as you're going through this for elites, I would say quick breaks would be number 1. You can break up the deadlifts with very little penalty, but that break for an elite athlete would basically be deadlifting it, dropping it, so that way you're not lowering it, and there's 1 extra second off tension, and then going back down and picking it up. For each one of those breaks, you're only really giving up half a second to 2 seconds, which you can definitely make up on the overall workout. For most elites, I'd say probably unbroken handstand push-ups would be a target. The cost for breaks is actually a little bit higher there, because you got to kick off the wall, take a breath, and kick back on. That's so much longer than just dropping the bar and picking it back up. So for elites, quick breaks. On the deadlifts, focus on unbroken handstand push-up. Now, as you saw from Frank, who had to scale the workout away from handstand push-ups, an intermediate athlete, it's going to be a very different style of workout. So you can scale it that way, or if you have handstand push-ups and you want to try to approach it, then you're going to try to break on both. You're not necessarily breaking the deadlifts because you need to, but you're breaking up the deadlifts more frequently, so that way when you get to the handstand push-ups, you're a little bit more fresh, and they're going to cost you a little bit less in terms of how fatigued you are when you actually approach that. If you are going to break up both, I'd recommend at the intermediate stage, it's almost better to stick to a clock. When you turn into an elite, or when you start working with elites, they're going so fast and they're relying so much on instinct and repetition and training that they don't necessarily have to think as much and pay as much attention to the clock. But at the intermediate level, it could be super beneficial to say, you know what, I'm going to break the deadlifts into 777, 555, 333, and I'm going to keep those breaks at 15 seconds every single time. Now, you might not be successful in doing that, but going in with a mindful and analytical plan can start to tell you where your capacity is, so that way you can approach the workouts with a little bit more mindfulness and not an unrealistic elite mindset of athletes that are training 8 hours a day. So I would say for Diane, for intermediates, and this would probably also be for RX athletes as well, stick to some sort of a clock plan and strategy. All right, so then that is the second benchmark, which leads into barbell cycling Isabel. Elites fresh will do this in about sub 130. There's actually videos of people I think that are really close to breaking 1 minute on this, or maybe somebody actually has. And then an intermediate athlete, I'd say sub 5 minutes is a pretty good target for that. That means you're doing 1 power snatch on the 10 seconds. You're getting 6 done in a minute. Now, this is going to be a lot slower. And as you're doing it, I basically have 3 strategies for you. Number 1 would be touch and go. That would be only for elite athletes. Number 2 would be cluster reps. So that would be what Brandon talked about, where you're doing 1 rep one or say 5 reps really quick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then a break. Then 1, 2, 3, 4 really quick, then a break. Not what some people think of as a squat clean into a thruster is a cluster. What I'm saying is you're clustering the reps together. So you're doing 1 quick, 2 quick, 3 quick, 4 quick, break. 1 quick, 2 quick, 3, 4 quick, break. And you're clustering the reps to get through 30 faster. Or option number 3 is singles on a steady clock. Basically just say, I'm gonna try to lift on the 10 seconds and finish in 5 minutes here, or I'm gonna try to lift on the 8 seconds. You can go by feel and kind of do what Allison did, but I think that you'd get through it a little bit better or a little bit faster, kind of having some sort of a model for how to approach that at the end of the workout. However, you might not actually be able to do it depending on how the Diane impacts your back and overall energy systems. But these would be kind of the strategies that you could mix in. And that's all I got. It's 3 benchmark-based workouts back to back to back. This one is not the full benchmark, but it's a little portion of it. Should be a good mashup for Thanksgiving. Good luck, crush the workout. You'll see me next week on this Throwdown whiteboard.
So grab your turkey, eat your stuffing, and watch this workout. Okay. Sorry, punish your kids. Eat your damn turkey and watch your workout. Absolutely. God, I wish they would just sit still for 5 seconds. Was that a one-take wonder take, or was that a rough draft? It felt kind of like a rough draft.
I think it was perfect.
It's a wrap, you know what I'm saying? Your boy Project Pata in this thing, man. Hey, look, man, thank y'all for watching Training Think Tank's YouTube channel. Y'all hit that motherfucking subscribe button, you know what I'm saying? So y'all go ahead, man. Thank y'all for watching the channel, you know what I'm saying? Hit that motherfucking subscribe button, let it be known, what it be known, what it be known, you know what I'm saying? Pata.